us today to talk a little bit about difficult conversations. And with that, I'll turn it over to Babs.
Hi, everybody. As Hillary said, my name is Babs. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, hopefully you can see that. All right. And Hillary is going to keep me honest. It's hard for me to see the chat while I'm presenting. So she's going to alert me when there are questions, if a hand is raised, if there's a lot of stuff going on in chat so that I can be a good presenter and meet your needs. As Hillary said, my name is Babs Bankson. I have been teaching difficult conversations in some way, shape, or form for over 10 years now. And it is by far the most popular topic in my small business. So apparently a lot of people struggle in this area. I know that I did when I first encountered this type of approach to difficult conversations, and I felt like I have finally found the holy grail of how to have these really difficult conversations. This is usually a full 2-day workshop with lots of intense activities and exercises. We have an hour and less than an hour now. So we are going to do a whirlwind tour of several different techniques. Okay. The goal of looking at these different approaches and techniques is that we would be able to hold difficult conversations with almost anyone about almost anything. Tall order, right? And here's what we're going to try and cover in this hour that we have together. I'm going to give you some ideas of what we mean about what is and is not a difficult conversation, and we'll talk about the struggles and about that are unique to the difficult conversations. Then I'm going to give you this technique called the contrast statement. I love this tool, love this tool, and I think you'll like it too. It's pretty easy for us to master in a short period of time. Then we are going to talk about mastering your stories. Again, very powerful technique. It helps you prepare for a difficult conversation. Then we'll talk about an approach, a formula to help you get started, because getting started a lot of times is half the battle, right? We're going to give you an approach for that. And we're going to end our time together talking about conversational CPR. And I will explain what the CPR is when we get there, but it's a way of pumping a little bit of life back into the relationship. So here we go. Some of you, when you approach difficult conversations, kind of look like this woman, like, oh no, here we go. I have to have this conversation. And you're just filled with a feeling of dread, or, like, oh, it's something you have to do, but you're not looking really forward to it. And then other times, people look like this, right? They are terrified to have this conversation with other people. They are shaking in their shoes. They're just really nervous about it. Um, Really quick story. A husband and wife were walking around the neighborhood, and the husband was just really upset, and he was telling her about a conversation that he was needing to have with his boss about giving him a raise. And he said, whenever I feel like, when I think about talking to him, my mouth gets really dry, and I feel like my tongue is sticking to the roof of my mouth. And the wife just nodded, it's like, yeah, I'm listening, and they walk along in silence. And he says, when I think about talking to him, my palms get really sweaty. I just get really nervous. And she looks over at him and she says, well, why don't you just lick your palms? Hopefully we have a better strategy and technique for you than that.
Gross. That's just, we're just seeing if people are paying attention at this point, right?
Okay, given that some people are just mildly dreading difficult conversations and other people are terrified of having them, what do you think from this international research? Over 18,000 employees were surveyed. How long do you think employees typically put off having a difficult conversation? Go ahead and put it in chat. What do you think?
Oh, a lot of C's, a lot of D's. A week, a month.
Okay. So the correct answer is a month. And I had 2 different participants in one of my seminars, and they both said, "Never." They said and I said, "Why would you never have the conversation?" And both of them answered, "We don't like confrontation." So, there are some people that just don't have the confidence in their skills and abilities to have a difficult conversation. If you struggle through, you have the skills, you have the confidence to have the difficult conversation. Another quick poll, put it in the chat. How many people do you think say, I'm really glad that I had that difficult conversation and life is really better now that I've had it? How many, what's the percentage of people that you think responded that way?
Hmm.
What are you seeing, Hillary?
Seeing a lot of C's, A's, B's, 75%.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit all over the place, 56%.
Okay. Okay, the correct answer is 91%. Huge percentage of people that after they had some skills and some training, they said, yeah, this really did make my life better. So we've been talking about difficult conversations. You signed up for this, so you have some idea of what a difficult conversation is. But we are going to unpack this just a little bit, and you will find this information in Crucial Conversations, the book. I adapted it because I changed it just slightly for our purposes here. And I'm going to talk about the elements of a difficult conversation just so that we're all on the same page and we understand what we're talking about. So, the first element of a difficult conversation is opposing opinions. This is where you have a difference of perspective. And I want you to know that just because you look at things differently does not mean necessarily that you're having a difficult conversation. A few years ago, a friend of mine, Liz, she and I were setting up for a potluck at our office, and people had dropped off their food items. And I noticed that Liz had put all of the food items to the back of the serving table. So I move them to the front of the serving table, and then I go out and I get some more serving utensils from our kitchen. When I came back into the room, Liz had moved all of the food items to the back of the table. And I said, Liz, why do you have the food items at the back of the table? And she says, oh, that's so that when people are serving themselves, they can put their plates down on the table and they don't have to hold the plate while they're trying to serve themselves. She said, why did you move the food items to the front of the table? And I said, because I'm the one that has to wash the tablecloths. So it was just a difference of opinion. We had a good laugh. And to tell you the truth, I don't remember where we ended up putting the food items, but it's just a difference of opinion, difference of perspective, but not a crucial conversation. The second element of a crucial conversation is high stakes, meaning it matters. That you care about this issue. It's something that is of value to you. There's one promotion, there is one internship, the opportunity, there's one seat on the advisory board. And so a lot of times the stakes are high, you're all vying for the same thing, but that does not necessarily mean that it has to be contentious or be difficult. I love the great British baking show. How many of you like to see that? Yeah, one of my favorites. And one of my favorites, not only that they're baking, which I love to watch all of their techniques, but I love how congenial it is and how people like come in to the rescue of their fellow contestants. And at the end, invariably at the end, the last three, they will interview the last three contestants for the one grand prize. And they will say, well, of course I want to win. But if so-and-so wins, that would be okay because so-and-so is a good baker. And so they're so polite and they're so nice about the whole endeavor, even though they're going after one thing, it's one high stake prize. So you can have high stakes, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a difficult conversation. Our third element is strong emotions. And again, just because people are upset does not mean that it's a difficult conversation. You may be talking to a colleague that didn't get a promotion, or their kid is struggling in school, or their car broke down for the second time this month and they don't know where they're going to get the money for this additional repair. So, you can have strong emotions, but you can be very supportive and you can be there for your friend. So just because there's strong emotions present in the conversation doesn't make it a difficult conversation. So what does make it a difficult conversation? When all three elements are present. Say a couple is facing paying their rent or getting their car fixed. They only have enough money in their budget for one thing. And you can imagine tensions are high. They either have a roof over their head or they have reliable transportation. In addition to the reliable transportation, if they go with the rent option, they have the additional expense of either taking public transportation or hiring Ubers or Lyft, types of transportation. So that's an additional hit to their budget. If they go with the car repair and they don't pay the rent, now they have to scramble and try and figure out how are they going to pay 2 months rent next time. So high stakes, strong emotions, opposing opinions, that, my friends, is a difficult conversation. Added to this mix is how people respond or react to the typical difficult conversation. They resort to either silence or verbal violence. And what do I mean by this? Silence is the person either just doesn't talk, they leave the conversation, or they acquiesce, they give in, they say, yeah, whatever you want, sounds good to me, just to get the person out of their face and so that they can walk away, right? But that silence, if not dealt with, they are not getting their viewpoint expressed. And over time, that could fester and grow. Verbal violence is volume, it's tone, it's sarcasm, it's criticism, it's swearing, it's using names, name calling. Those are like the verbal attacks that get to you, and they hurt, they dig. And people use verbal violence on occasion when they are faced with a difficult conversation because they just don't have the skills to deal with things in a different manner. What we're going to talk about today are some techniques that help us bridge those two strategies and get to a dialogue where both of us are being calm, cool, collected, or as much as we can be with the strong emotions present, and we are able to engage in dialogue. Okay, so I forgot one of the interaction pieces that I wanted to do. Let me just go back really quickly. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment. Let me see. I am not seeing my bar here. All right.
Maybe go out of full.
I'm sorry?
You go out of your presentation full screen, it might show up. It might be there somewhere behind a screen. Wiley, it just disappears.
I don't know. Hold on. No, it is not there.
The
All right. There we are. Okay. There we are. Here we go. I am so sorry about that.
Right.
Okay, here we go.
Zoom gets the best of all of us.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to teach you was, and you can put your cameras on if you'd like. So to help you remember the three elements of a difficult conversation, we are going to do this. We're going to put our fists together. You ready? Fists. We're going to do opposing opinions. Opposing opinions. The next element is high stakes. We're going to go over our heads like a goalpost. And then strong emotion. We're going to cross our heart, hope to die. Okay, you ready? We're going to do it again. Opposing opinions, high stakes, strong emotions. Ready? One more time. Opposing opinions, high stakes, strong emotions. All right, that kind of got your blood flowing. Ready to go? Okay.
Like it.
All right. So let me get back to where I was.
And I have to say this book was a game changer for me. So when Babs said she was a trainer in it, I immediately was excited about this opportunity.
Okay. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I have missed my, hold on.
Oh, it was on for a second.
Yeah,
There it goes.
okay. Somehow there we go. Okay. Are you seeing that, the contrast statement?
We're seeing the not the full screen, and it's on the elements of difficult conversation.
Okay. Are we good?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. I am sorry. I changed my controls and my settings before this. I'm gonna have to change them back. Okay. One of the most powerful tools that I really love, this is called the contrast statement. And this is amazing. This is a tool that you can use in the heat of the moment when you have accidentally offended someone. Sound good, right? So let me give you an example. Say that in a meeting, you have a whole bunch of things that you're thinking about, but in the course of the meeting, all you say is you say in the meeting, I think Morgan's event is at risk. Okay, what has happened? Morgan is feeling disrespected and called out in front of everybody on the team, may get really defensive and come back at you, and you say, oh no, I didn't share everything I meant to share. And what you might want to do is say things like, oh, Morgan, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to say that you were going to drop the ball here. What I meant to convey to the rest of the team is that the president's office is scheduling an event for the same day. So the contrast statement is a way of handling when somebody has misinterpreted your intentions. So you want to use it right in the heat of the moment when you realize that another person has misunderstood you or you misspoke and you need to set the record straight. You can also use it as a preemptive tool when you want to deliver something that is going to be bad news or something that you think most likely this person is going to misinterpret what I'm going to say, and you want to forestall a misunderstanding. You want to start with the negative first. I don't know about you, but my brain is not wired this way. And when I first encountered this tool, I had the hardest time, like getting my brain to readjust and putting the no up front. That just seemed backward and awkward to me. And I finally got it, and now I use it all the time. And the reason that we do the no first is we are trying to nip the misunderstanding in the bud. We're trying to negate that misunderstanding and get them to stop reacting and responding to that misunderstanding so that we can follow with our true intention and say, I misspoke. I didn't mean to say that. Here's what I meant to say instead. And that way you can do you can clear it up. Contrast statement, no first, followed by your true intention. Pretty powerful tool.
And it's especially helpful, I find, if there's baggage there. If you've misunderstood each other before and you're coming back to the table, having that contrast statement is very helpful and disarming. It gets people on the same page quickly.
That's good. Okay, so we're talking now, we're going to transition into you preparing for a difficult conversation. You know that you need to have one with another person, and you're going to prepare for this misunderstanding or this difficult conversation. So the first thing you want to do is get very clear. We were talking in the contrast statement about our intentions. This is where we're going to derive some clarity around our intentions. What do I really want from this conversation? Excuse me, why am I even bothering to have this conversation with the other person? What do I want to get out of it? But we also want to think about, what do we want for the other person? Do we want just a good working relationship? Do we want the other person to be comfortable with us? Do we want just the person to know that we respect them? Or do we want something more, like they're a really good friend and you want them to know that you are a comfortable, safe person, that they can come and talk to you about anything that is, getting in the way of your good relationship. So say if you are in one of those work relationships where the other person just gets on your nerves, right? They just kind of hit you the wrong way, and you think, I don't really care very much about the other person's relationship with me, other than I want us to work well together. And so you might have to take it to that final question, the what do I want for the team or the organization? We might have to bump it up a level if that person is just somebody that like gets to you or irritates you, or you just don't relate, you kind of clash a little bit. You can take the higher road and say, okay, I don't really have a whole lot of investment in this relationship. However, I do want this relationship to work because our teams work together, or the workflow is such that I need, for the benefit of the team or the benefit of the organization, I need to figure out a way to work with this person. So any one of those questions can help you get to be very clear about your intentions. And then that way you can kind of get an understanding of what you really want as a result of your difficult conversation. And this is how it goes in your head. You see something, you hear something, you experience something, and your mind tells you a story. And based on that story, you feel something. And then based on that feeling, you act. For example, he treated me like a child, and that made me mad. Okay, so we kind of act like the emotion happened to us, like the way he treated me made me mad. And really, we told ourselves a story. We told ourselves a story that he was treating us as a child, and we didn't like that. This happens in nanoseconds. It happens so quick. Sometimes we find ourselves responding and we don't even know why we're responding that way or reacting to that way. It happens so quickly. And sometimes we're even surprised at ourselves by our overreaction. And we think, wow, where did that come from? Right? It's because our mind supplied a story or a pattern or something to fill in what they saw, what your mind saw, heard, experienced, and it filled in the gap. And pretty soon you find yourself feeling and reacting to that. So we're going to unpack this a little bit so I can give you some examples of what I mean. Over the summer, I got to hear Carlos, this DJ on a radio station that I was listening to. He was telling about his 8-year-old son that went to the Junior Olympics. And he was trying to coach his son on the way to the event, that he may be the fastest kid in his class, in his school, and in the region, but now he was going to be competing against other kids that were faster than him. And they were also the fastest kid in their school, in their region. And the little boy, being 8 years old, says, yeah, Dad, I know that. So they get there, and his son goes and he's in the qualifying heat. And at the end of the heat, he finishes in the middle of the pack. And his time does not qualify him to move on to any of the other events at the Junior Olympics. He's washed out at the qualifying event. So Carlos, he's standing in the president's tent, right? In the parents' tent, and he's watching his son work his way over to his dad. And he comes in, and his head's kind of hanging low. And Carlos' heart just goes out for his son. And he leans over and he says, "How you doing, buddy?" And his son looks up at him and says, Dad, I'm really disappointed that I didn't do better. But I got to thinking, you know, I'm the only kid in my school that got to the Junior Olympics. And when I go back this fall, I'm going to be the only Olympian in the entire school. That's pretty cool, isn't it, Dad? Don't you just love that? Don't you wish everybody had that kind of outward, positive outlook on life?
That would
So
be
that's great, right? Okay, so let's unpack this and let's think of some other stories that Carlos's son might have told himself. Story one. What if he said, Dad, those kids that won, they started off on the starting block way ahead of the rest of us, and they broke the rules. Okay, so what story is he telling himself? Not my fault. It's those other kids breaking the rules, and that's why they won, and that's why I lost. So he's feeling justified in losing, right? It's not him, it's somebody else. How's he going to act when he gets back to school? Well, maybe he starts like watching for everybody breaking the rules. Maybe he blames everybody else for him not doing well. And I know that we in the workplace never encounter people that blame others for their shortcomings, right? Okay. That was story number 2. The first one was that he was an Olympian. Story number 2 was that people were breaking the rules and that's why he lost. Story number 3. What if he came back and said, Dad, I didn't even make it out of the qualifying. I am such a loser. Okay, so he's feeling really disappointed. He's feeling like a loser. What action might he take when he gets home? He might quit, right? Okay. Well, I'm not going to leave you with a sad story. Let's come up with one other story of Carlos's son. What if he comes back and he says, Dad, I'm disappointed I didn't do any better. But you know what? I saw some of those kids that won, and I saw how they were pumping their arms and how they pushed off with the ball of their feet. And, I'm going to talk to the coach when I get home. I'm going to ask him to show me how to do that. Okay, so now how is he feeling? He's feeling really encouraged and excited that he has something to learn and that he can do better in the future. Okay, so those are the same set of circumstances. Look at how many stories that we told that would lead to different feelings and lead to different outcomes. Think you're ready to try it? You think they're ready to try it, Hillary?
I think so.
Okay, we are going to put you in small groups. And here's the scenario that we would like you to discuss. First of all, we'd like you to introduce yourself to other people in your breakout room. And then we are going to ask you to come up with as many stories as you can. Try and go for as many stories as you can that explain this scenario. You are at a meeting and your colleague has the final presentation slides. The colleague took the responsibility of making all the changes that you had discussed yesterday and has the final slide deck, but your colleague is not at the meeting, is late, and has not contacted you in any way, shape, or form. Your job in your small group, in your breakout group, is to come up with as many stories as you can to explain this scenario. Be fun, have fun, be creative, and we're going to put you in breakout rooms.
All right, you ready? Here we go. And then I'm going to go to my breakout settings. Oops. And I'll share my screen. Share breakout rooms. Oops. Let me go to full screen.
All right.
I haven't full screen. There we go. Nope. Share. All right, there we go. Hopefully that's working in their rooms.
It should be one more.
I did 4 rooms because we only had 20 people.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I think more breakout rooms.
So somehow my my meeting, like I had it set up so that I could see my notes and everything.
Yeah.
And that went away. And it's like, then I couldn't find I couldn't share it was weird. I couldn't share my screen. I couldn't stop sharing. It was just weird.
That's okay.
I don't know what happened.
Every time I try and do Zoom, something happens, even when I practice. I'm like, doggone it.
I know. And I practiced. Oh,
I think that's it.
Hey, people are coming back in.
Did you guys have fun telling your stories? Was this too realistic for some of you? Maybe you've actually experienced this and you're like, oh my gosh, this is too real.
Yeah. People are starting to have the
Yeah.
vapors.
Oof. And let me tell you, I can come up with some whopper stories when I'm left to my own devices. If something happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if it's this or that? So this book really brought it into perspective, like, oh, okay, this is a real thing. It's not just
Yeah. So
Is it
very quickly, does
appropriate
any
to
go
bring up
ahead,
a
Barry.
question right now, or should I wait?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think, Hillary said something that made me think about this. Why is it that our first impressions in general are to catastrophize, an event that isn't going according to plan, we'll say?
That's true.
That is our default, isn't it?
It seems to be.
Yeah. And that's why it's really helpful to pause and talk about what else could be true or what else explains that. And looking at the stories really helps us kind of get off the ledge and think about, oh, well, there might be another more rational, reasonable explanation for this.
Okay.
Yes.
And we can help others too when we start to see them going down that rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
the worst thing ever. We can say, let's pull back. This
Yeah.
might not be it. It's okay.
That's funny, Barry, because I just had this conversation on Sunday with my brother. He's having trouble with his knee, and he's already projecting, even before he went to the doctor, that he's going to have surgery, and he's going to be out for a while, and he's not going to be able to play ultimate frisbee. And I said, you know the old saying, let's get the test results before we plan the funeral.
Yeah, that's right. That's so true.
Okay. So I'm going to invite you to put into chat some of your more wild and fun ideas or stories that your group came up with. And you can be typing away at that while I go on. So you can hopefully type and listen at the same time. Hillary, it's not letting me. Oh, there we go. I was going to say it's not letting me share.
I have it set that multiple people can share.
Okay, here we go. So this is the starting the conversation tool I told you about, or approach that I was going to help you with. A lot of times we have a hard time even knowing how to get started. So we are going to start with the facts. And these are the facts as we experience them. This is what I saw. This is what I heard. This is what I experienced. This is what I expected. Now, with expectations, expectations become fact if they are verbalized. If you have either sent them a text or an email, or you had a conversation about your expectations, then it's a fact. If you just expected something in your head but you've never communicated with the person, well, then they're not a mind reader. You can't hold them accountable for that. But if it's verbalized, then it's a fact. So you lay out all the facts, and then you tell them why you are telling them the facts. Like, this is what you concluded, or this is what you believe, or, putting these all together. I am starting to think that, and that's where it becomes why it's important that you are sharing these facts with the other person. Like, here's the issue, and this is what I'm thinking. And then you don't want to leave it there, because this is your story. This is your understanding of what's going on. You need to remember we're talking about dialogue. So you're going to throw the conversational ball over to them and say, do you see it differently? Do you have anything to add? Do you have a different perspective on this? Am I off base here? Can you help me out? And so you are inviting them to participate in the dialogue, in the conversation. So again, starting the conversation, you start with the facts as you understand them and see them. Then you tell the story. This is how I interpret things. This is how I see it. This is my perspective. And then you ask them to contribute to the conversation and get their perspective and their input into the dialogue. And that way you can start having an exchange of, oh, okay, yeah. And then understanding starts to happen.
Yeah, we've got some whoppers in the chat too.
Oh, do we? Tell me one or two before we go on.
They got kidnapped on the way to work. They won the lottery.
Okay.
They, simple things like family emergency, or some more great ones like they got superpowers. They
Okay.
are quitting their job now. They're off to save the world. I love it. These are some
Okay.
great ones. Their alarm didn't go off. They left their phone on the car. I mean, there's some pretty elaborate ones. I love it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for participating with that. I hope you had fun telling stories. And I think it just drives home the point that we could tell many stories for the same set of facts, and we have to be aware of that.
Mhm.
So no alien abductions, huh? That usually comes up every time.
Kidnapping was close, but alien abduction,
Yes.
that's a good one too. I'm glad I'm not the only one that goes to like the outlandish stories.
I think we all do on occasion. Okay, in the time remaining, let me take you through. Okay, so this is a recognition that difficult conversations are complicated, and I'm going to help you with another tool to help you sort through the difficulty of a difficult conversation and trying to figure out what kind of conversation you need to have. This is a powerful tool. It's called conversational CPR. And as you can read what each element means, let me unpack that a little bit. Content, I like to think of the catalyst. This is the incident that sparks the idea that, oh, I need to have a difficult conversation with another person. So this is the event, the incident, the catalyst. This is something that happened or something you saw, you heard, you experienced that triggers like, oh, I need to talk to somebody about that. It could be a big thing or it could be a little thing. And sometimes that's all you need. You don't need to go into these other things. Sometimes the conversation stays at that level of content. Pattern, obviously, it's something that's repeated. You've seen this before. You've experienced this before. This pattern has been repeated before. It's happened one or more times in the past. Relationship, this really gets to the person's character. You start thinking that they are a slob, they're irresponsible, that they're not a team player. Their very character, their essence of their character is coming into play here, and it's at the relationship level. And you say, well, that's really nice, Babs, but why should I care about that? What does it matter where, what type of conversation I have? Let me give you a couple of examples. Going to the content level, have you ever done something very innocently, or you made a simple little mistake and the other person like jumps all over you? We have language for this. We call it making a federal case or jumping down my throat. And this is the idea that a person is way overreacting to something that was really simple and minor. And that's because the person, for whatever reason, has gone to the relationship level when it's really a content issue. And the reverse can also happen. Have you ever been out to dinner and you're with a couple and they just nitpick at each other all night? Well, I don't like the way that you twirl your spaghetti. Well, I don't like the way that you chink the ice in your glass. And just on and on and me, all evening, right? Makes it really uncomfortable. Well, what's happening? They're staying at the content level and they really need to go to the relationship level. That's where they need to be. They need to be talking about whatever it is in their relationship that is causing them an issue. These things you could have a conversation at any of these levels, or you could use all of them in a conversation. And I have a real life story to tell you about how all these come into play. And it kind of helps bring everything together that we've talked about so far. So here's my true story. So I was sitting in my office and I'm typing away, I'm getting work done. And this colleague comes and stands at the door frame, the door frame doesn't come all the way in, just stands at the door and says, "You are so inconsiderate. I am so sick and tired of you parking so close to the parking space. And I can't even get out of my car most mornings because you're parking so far over. I'm sick of it. I wish you would stop doing that." And she marches off. And I'm sitting there stunned. I had no idea that she was upset. Whoa. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like calming down a little bit. So what happened? I was parking too close to the line. That's the content. That's the issue. And She stayed silent about it because obviously I've done this before. So she stayed silent about it the first time. And she stayed silent about it the second time. And she stayed silent about it the second and third and fourth time, right? She was staying silent until this one time. It was the straw that broke the camel's back because this repeated behavior was not going away and it wasn't getting better. So what happens? She goes from silence all the way over the scale to verbal violence. And she starts questioning my character. I'm inconsiderate because I haven't corrected this problem and I keep making her squish out of her car every morning. Right? So I take a while to just kind of de-stress because the adrenaline was pumping because somebody yelled at me. And I called maintenance and I said, "Hey guys, here's what's going on." So at the end of the day, when cooler heads were prevailing, I went to her and I apologized and I said, "I had no idea. I wish you would have told me sooner. I could have taken care of this." I said, "Here's what's going on. The bush on my side of the parking lot is so overgrown that I have to park closer to your parking space so that I can get out of my car. I've asked maintenance to come. They have lopped off all of those branches and we're good to go. I will park next closer to the bush and I will park farther away from the line in the space." So problem solved. We are good colleagues. Not kumbaya level, but we were able to work well together for the next few years. But again, this is what happens when we don't have difficult conversations in a timely manner, when we resort to silence until things fester to the point where they go to verbal violence. And this could have been handled at the content level, and instead it escalated all the way to the relationship level. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Let's see if you can you can put this into practice. Feeling good about being able to practice this? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And Hillary, if you would put people in the small groups, please.
Oh, do
So
you want to
here's,
tell them?
yeah, let me give them a little scenario. Maybe I should have let me share again just real quick,
Okay,
and I'll set this up for you.
cool.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to put you in breakout rooms in pairs this time, just two. And I'm going to ask you to take turns. First of all, I would like you to together identify the content pattern and relationship issue. And then one of you is going to be Chris, and the other person is going to be the person addressing Chris. And the person who is playing Chris, I'm sorry, not Chris, Pat this time. Chris is the next one. Pat, you are going to come up with a really good story about why you are leaving the break room messy. So here's the scenario, and this will be in your break room. Your team takes turn clean the break room. Every time it's Pat's turn, Pat doesn't do a very good job. The team is getting really frustrated with Pat. And so this is your scenario that you could practice content, pattern, and relationship. And the person who is going to address Pat, I would like you to use the conversational approach that we already discussed. State your facts, state the story, and then do the ask. Are you ready? Okay.
All right, so let me get the breakout rooms going.
Let me stop sharing.
It should send
And
them.
we will have instructions in your breakout room for you.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Did you have fun? Yeah. All right, we were talking, and because we started about 5 minutes late and I had that little technological snafu, we lost a little bit of time, so we will not do the second scenario. I'm sorry. But let's go to wrap up so that we could finish well. Are there any questions about what we covered before we go into the wrap up? Okay. I'll wrap up, and then if you have questions, we can address it then. Okay, so that was okay. So this is what we covered today. Oh, I forgot to share. Oops. That would
And
be
hopefully-
helpful.
And hopefully it worked out with Pat in the break room. You're able to come up with some good
All
ideas,
right.
Pat.
Okay, so here's what we covered today. We covered the 3 elements of difficult conversations. So what were they? Opposing opinions, high stakes, strong emotions, right? 3 elements of a difficult conversation. We talked about going to silence in verbal violence. We talked about getting our intentions clear. We talked about contrast statements, about how, a tool to help us when there's misunderstandings or we anticipate someone's going to misinterpret what we are about to say to them. And so we're going to use a preemptive strike here and use a contrast statement. We're going to put our no up front, like, I don't mean this, I do mean this. And very powerful tool. Then we talked about mastering our stories, and we had fun creating different stories for the same set of facts. We talked about starting the conversation, stating our facts, stating the story as we understood the facts to be true, and then asking them for their input and inviting them into the dialogue. And we ended our time with conversational CPR, talking about content and pattern in relationship and how we can have a conversation at any one of those levels, or some conversations are complicated enough that we put them all together in the same conversation. Okay, now, are there any questions about what we covered? Anything that you would like to get more information about?
We have a question in the chat. It says, at the beginning, you highlighted the length of time people take to have a difficult conversation, but I think I missed what a best timely manner would be. Is this subjective? Is it always best to do it immediately? Caroline would like to know. Thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Very good question. I would say that the sooner the better, because as you could see with my true life story, that conversation didn't happen when it should have, and it festered and festered, and then it became this big blow up instead of being able to be handled in a very smaller, lower level of conversation. If you are too hot, you're too upset, and you need time to process, you need to take that into consideration. So it really does depend, but the sooner you can have the conversation, the better. And I have a friend who, she would save up all the things that were annoying her about her husband. And then when they had time to talk, then she would unload on him. And it's like, some of the things happened 2 weeks ago. And it's like, why are you bringing this up now? And it's like, I tried several times to tell her, no, you have to tell him sooner to the event so that he understands what, you know, what's going on in the context. And he's not even going to remember 2 weeks from now what happened. So yeah, sooner is better. Any other question?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you do have a question. You're welcome.
I see that we're right at 4 o'clock. I want to be cognizant of your time. I will hang out afterwards. And I just want to remind you that April 8th, we are back with mastering feedback. And it is a subset of difficult conversations. It's a very particular type of conversation. Okay, I see Deborah has a question. Feel free to leave if you need to.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Deborah.
that was fantastic. I work with Hillary on putting together professional development stuff for fellows, so this is super exciting. And I just wonder if now or the next session or by email you would have any suggested resources for people if they want to dive deeper into these topics.
Yes, the book Crucial Conversations is amazing. And next month, when we talk about mastering feedback, it's called Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Pound and Sheila Heen. And this one is a crucial conversation, and there's like 4 or 5 authors to it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for putting that in the chat, Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both. This was great.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
And Julissa, if you send me your email, if you give me your email, I can send you the registration for the mastering feedback session. If you put your email in the chat, or I might already have your email from signing up for this one. But if you could just put that in the chat, that'd be great. And I will send you the information to register. I put Babs' information in the chat as well. Her company is To Be Your Best, and her email is in the chat as well. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for putting that in there. And thank you, Babs, for taking the time today to talk to us about difficult conversations. It's something that we all, I think, stress about. And can, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Grab that email real quick. Good.